So, up next, we're going to talk about Lifewave and lifespan, but first, let's go to this video.
I simply define aging as the lifelong accumulation of damage in the body that is generated as side effects of the normal metabolic processes that keep us alive from one day to the next. The analogy with a car or an aeroplane or any other man-made machine is absolutely valid. They do damage to themselves in the course of their normal operation, and they're only set up to tolerate a certain amount of that damage. But, as you say, by sufficiently comprehensive preventative maintenance, we can keep a car going as long as we like, irrespective of how long it was designed to last. People cling to this completely fallacious idea that there is some kind of biologically meaningful difference between the diseases of aging on one side and aging itself on the other side. There is no such thing. Everything that predominantly goes wrong with people late in life and not early in life is part of aging, whether we call it a disease or not.
How does this play out? Like, what should people be ready for?
It's a very, very important question. And I believe that actually the next few years, the next 3 to 5 years, are going to be the critical ones, because that's the period during which this already increasing, burgeoning understanding of the imminence of these technologies is going to really take off and become general. Most people will realize that these therapies are probably coming soon, probably in time for them. And that's the point when they're going to make changes to their lives as a result of expecting to live a lot longer than they previously expected to live. We have to really urgently develop new products that will be ready to roll out when this change in people's expectations of how long they're going to live starts to happen. Because when it does start to happen, it's going to spread like wildfire.
Okay, so let's take a look at Lifewave and lifespan and some of the things that you can be implementing to have an impact today on your overall quality of life. So the goal here is that not only do we want to increase lifespan, but we want to increase health span, meaning that as you age, you stay younger in the process, and we even reverse some of the signs and symptoms of aging. If we can do this, then that means we decrease our risk of all-cause mortality. So, for example, if we implement a regular program of eating healthy and exercise, and we maintain a healthy body composition, and we stay strong, then what we do is we reduce our risk of diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and cancer, just to name a few. So these are really important things that will have an impact on quality of life, not just that we're trying to extend life, we're trying to extend the amount of time that we can have productive, youthful years. So let's look on some research of some specific nutrients, for example, that you could include. So notably, the body's levels of glutathione decline with age, and for all the reasons already mentioned, glutathione as the master antioxidant is going to be a key strategy in extending human life and maintaining health. Glutathione also, of course, is principal antioxidant in the liver, which facilitates detoxification. So in a world that we live in today, which is full of contaminants, we need to maintain our body's levels of glutathione because it is the backbone of our defensive system. So of course, we have two products that will help support your body's levels of glutathione. One is the glutathione patch, and the other is Celergize, which contains the precursors that your body needs to make glutathione. And there are a number of studies that we have in our back office that demonstrate how this patch elevates glutathione. Depending on what your diet is like and what you do with supplementation will depend on your ability to make glutathione. So for example, if you are a vegan or a vegetarian, you may not be getting enough of the amino acid cysteine in your diet, or the mineral selenium, which is a necessary precursor for making glutathione. So that's why we included N-acetylcysteine in Celergize and selenium, so you could get those nutrients. Now, carnosine is a nutrient that everyone should be taking or elevating because it has enormous health benefits. First, as we've already discussed, carnosine protects the telomeres, and this is going to protect our ability to make new cells. So we consider this. When we get into our mid-70s, our cells reach what's called the Hayflick limit. The number of times the cells can divide are defined by this limit. And in humans, it's about 70 to 75. So at that point, we're no longer making younger, healthier cells. The telomeres, since they're regulating cell division, if we can simply use methods to lengthen the telomeres or prevent them from decaying, which happens in all species that don't age, then we can continue to make younger, healthier cells way beyond the limit of 75. In addition, carnosine is stored in the brain and in the muscle tissue. So our research with carnosine demonstrates that in addition to improving cognition, also improves strength and stamina. So when we consider all-cause mortality in individuals above the ages of 50, 60, 70, one of the key things that we see is that this is closely linked to strength and stamina. Meaning if you're exercising, if you're using nutrients like carnosine to maintain strength, your risk of dying from anything declines. Now, one of the key factors in aging is stress. So if we live a life where we work long hours, we're not taking methods to manage stress, we have stress in our personal life, we have stress at work, we're not taking time to exercise, meditate, pray, then this will ultimately cause a health crisis in our life. Emotional stress is linked to oxidative and inflammatory stress. So when we have these negative emotions, it has a detrimental physical impact on the body. It's important to recognize that. So Aeon, what we have found, within about 15 seconds, reduces the stress on the nervous system. We did this study. One of the important studies that we did with Aeon was with Dr. Tom Budzinski, and we used a piece of technology, it's called thought technology, and it measures changes in the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system. And what we found is that within 15 seconds of applying the Aeon patch, the nervous system goes into balance. So that's why we market this as a product for managing stress. Now here's a fun fact. Very often I'll be asked, well, we know the glutathione patch elevates glutathione. We know X39 elevates copper peptide. Why don't we show what peptide Aeon will elevate? And the reason why we don't talk about that is because if you were to do a search on that peptide, you would immediately see medical applications for that peptide, and we don't want to make those claims for this patch since we don't study it that way. But the Aeon patch was developed as a result of research that was done, interestingly enough, on bees. So if you take a peptide that naturally occurs in the human body, in the liver, and this peptide declines with age. And you take that peptide and you inject it into a worker bee, you can increase the lifespan of the worker bee to be equivalent to a queen bee. And turns out that the queen bee, the reason why they live longer is because they're eating the royal jelly, and that peptide is found in the royal jelly. So this is a very good example of how we can look to nature and find clues to how different species are defying normal aging, and then apply that over to human beings. So use of the Aeon patch elevates this peptide. It will reduce stress on your nervous system, reduce inflammatory oxidative stress, and we certainly believe this will ultimately have very beneficial impact on longevity. Now, copper peptide. We don't have enough time today to cover all the benefits of X39 and copper peptide, but a simple search will reveal that there are numerous benefits to using X39 and elevating your copper peptide. We know that copper peptide levels decline by over 60% after the age of 60. So we have to have a strategy if we want to improve our longevity. We have to have a strategy for increasing our body's levels of copper peptide. Again, with Celergize, we include the nutrients that are required to make copper peptide, just in case you don't have the best diet. So some of the benefits are cosmetic, in the sense that we're repairing the skin. But keep in mind that collagen is the #1 protein in the body. So if we're seeing these effects show up in the skin, we know that they're also occurring throughout the body, improving skin firmness, elasticity, reduction of fine lines and wrinkles, even improving the structure of aged skin. This is an important one, because when we do research on human aging, one of the key things that you see is that the physical structure of the cell changes over time. The cell has what's called a cytoskeleton, which is made of a matrix of collagen protein. So it's like jello inside the cell, and the organelles are attached to this collagen matrix. When we're age 25, levels of collagen begin to drop. So we could say, in effect, that around age 25, we start to age. So we need to have methods of increasing collagen production and maintaining the integrity of the cell, and copper peptide is one of the methods that we can use for that. Another interesting effect of copper peptide is reducing photo damage. I would encourage all of you to make sure you're getting enough copper in your diet. In physics, we would create a Faraday cage to screen out electromagnetic radiation. And these Faraday cages are made of copper. Well, it turns out the same thing happens in human beings. The skin stores copper. And if we get enough copper in our diet, it can help to act like a Faraday cage and screen out harmful UV light. So this is something that we should be doing, getting enough copper in our diet to protect us from unwanted exposure to UV. And of course, copper peptide improves overall skin appearance, protection from UV radiation. Copper peptide manages inflammation in the body, and of course, other things that we can't talk about. And you're not talking about either on these conference calls, right? All right. And of course, the big one relative to our conversation today is that copper peptide, which was discovered by Laurent Picard. I hope he wins a Nobel Prize for his discovery. 50 years doing research in this area, and he found that copper peptide resets 1/3 of the human genome back to a more youthful state. So this is really key. There's a phenomena called parabiosis. And this was discovered more than 150 years ago. And essentially it was found that if you take the blood from a young animal, like a rat, and you put that into an older rat, that the older rat starts to become younger. And the same effect occurs in human beings. And one of the principal factors that's driving that process is copper peptide. So again, we can look to nature. And we've done numerous studies on X39 now. So very, very early on in 2018, we had developed protocols working with a lab on how to measure GHK and GHK-Cu levels in human beings. And so we did our initial pilot studies, and we found that application of X39 did in fact elevate levels of GHK within 24 hours and levels of copper peptide within 7 days. So the copper peptide is formed first, and then very quickly it binds with copper. And by the way, both GHK and GHK-Cu are biologically active, meaning there's beneficial effects from both of those peptides. So this is why when people start to use X39, they find within the first day that they're already sleeping better, they have improved energy and other effects. So, and then I click past that other slide a little bit too quickly, but of course you can get this in your back office. That was an initial pilot study, but then we did a double-blind placebo-controlled study, and we found the same thing, that X39 is indeed elevating copper peptide. Okay, oh, and there it is back up over there. Thank you, kind person, in audio video. So these studies are available in your back office. We don't need to go through them now, but this is just to say that we're doing the research studies on our products in this field of anti-aging and age reversal. So first, you can have the confidence in knowing that this is a science-based company. We support our products with proper research, but also we're on the cutting edge of looking at what is possible in stopping and reversing human aging. And there's a lot more to the story, but we're going to watch this video and then come back.